The message from the edge of known space came through garbled and weak. It took the Galactic Council's best translators 3 days to piece it together. When they finally did, the council chamber fell silent. "Help us," the message said. "Our world is dying." The signal came from a small planet in the outer reaches of the Orion Arm. The council had no name for this world yet. Their scanners classified it as a death world, a planet so hostile that most spacefaring races would die within hours of landing on its surface. Acid rain fell from thick toxic clouds. Massive storms swept across entire continents. The ground itself was unstable, with frequent earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Yet somehow, life had not only survived there, it had become intelligent. 3 weeks after receiving the message, Captain Tom White stood at attention in Admiral Reed's office on Earth's orbital command station. The Admiral was a tall, weathered man with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. "At ease, Captain," the Admiral said, pushing a tablet across his desk. "I have your new assignment." Tom picked up the tablet and scanned the mission brief. His eyes widened slightly. "Sir, this is a distress call from an unknown species." "The Vex." Admiral Reed nodded. "First contact was made by a Council survey ship 2 weeks ago. They sent a small team down in heavy environmental suits. Most of them came back." "Most?" "The Vex world isn't friendly to visitors," Reed said with a shrug. "The Council has voted to send humanitarian aid." Tom kept reading the brief. "Sir, the path to this planet goes through crawl space." "Correct. The crawl have granted passage for a relief mission." Reed's face hardened. "But we have reason to believe they're lying." The crawl were a warrior race that controlled a dozen star systems on the edge of human space. For 20 years they had tested Earth's borders with raids and small attacks. Never enough to start a war, but enough to make their intentions clear. "So what are my orders?" Tom asked, though he already suspected the answer. Reed touched a control on his desk, and a holographic image of a sleek dark ship appeared between them. Tom recognized it immediately, the UES Nemesis. "You're not leading a relief mission, Captain. You're taking our newest warship to the edge of known space." The Nemesis wasn't just any warship. It was humanity's most advanced stealth destroyer, armed with experimental weapons and defensive systems that even the Council didn't know about. Tom had heard rumors about it, but had never seen it in person. "The Council thinks these Vex need doctors and supplies," Reed continued. "Our intelligence suggests they need protection. The Crawl have been too quiet about this new species. They're planning something." Tom studied the ship's specifications on the tablet. "A crew of 60? You'll select them yourself," Reed said. "I suggest people who understand harsh environments. This Vex world makes our worst places look like paradise." That gave Tom an idea. "I'll need freedom to choose my crew." Reed nodded. "Granted. The Nemesis will be ready in 48 hours. Choose wisely, Captain." 2 days later, Tom stood in the Nemesis's loading bay, watching as his hand-picked crew boarded the ship. He had chosen specialists who shared one common trait. They all came from Earth's most dangerous regions. His second-in-command, Jack, approached him with a tablet. "Final crew manifest, sir. All aboard." Jack had grown up in the Australian outback, in one of the dust reclamation zones. His skin was permanently tanned from years under the harsh sun, and he moved with the quiet efficiency of someone used to conserving energy. "Good," Tom said, looking over the list. "Engineering team?" "All set. Chief Engineer Maria has them running final checks now." Maria was born in the reclaimed deserts of North Africa. She understood how to keep machines running in environments that wanted to destroy them. Her team had been chosen from similar backgrounds: the Siberian Recovery Zone, the Amazon flood basins, the volcanic islands of the Pacific. Tom's security chief, Marcus, joined them. He was a large man with pale skin and ice-blue eyes, born in one of the Arctic settlements. "Weapon systems are online, Captain. All green." The Earth that Tom and his crew knew was classified as a Class 4 death world by galactic standards. Most alien species would die within hours of setting foot on its surface without protection. Humanity had evolved on a planet that constantly tried to kill them, with weather, predators, diseases, and natural disasters. It had made them tough, adaptable, and resourceful. What better crew to meet another species born from the same kind of forge? The Council is sending a ship with medical supplies and environmental engineers, Tom told his officers as they gathered on the bridge for pre-launch. They'll arrive in 2 weeks. Our job is to assess the situation before they get there. On cue, the main view screen, the Nemesis hung in space against the blue curve of Earth. It was 300 meters long with a dark hull that seemed to swallow light. Its lines were smooth and predatory like a shark. Our official mission is first contact and preliminary aid, Tom continued. The Vex have requested help dealing with environmental disasters on their world. Jack raised an eyebrow. And our real mission, sir? Tom touched a control, and the view screen changed to show a classified mission brief. Intelligence believes the Crawl are interested in this new species. We need to find out why. The brief contained a final line, marked in red. Assess military, potential and determine strategic value of Vex technology. Priority, prevent Crawl acquisition by any means necessary. The Nemesis is faster than any Crawl ship, Tom said. We'll reach the Vex homeworld 4 days before any Crawl response can arrive. That gives us time to evaluate the situation. And if the Crawl are already there? Marcus asked. Tom's expression hardened. Then we find out what they're up to and stop it. An hour later, the Nemesis broke orbit and headed for the jump point that would take it beyond Council space. Tom stood on the bridge, watching as Earth shrank behind them. His planet looked peaceful from space, its dangers hidden beneath clouds and blue oceans. He wondered what the Vex world would look like. What kind of people would evolve on a planet, even harsher than Earth? And what did the Crawl want with them? As the Nemesis reached the jump point, Tom gave the order. Take us through. The stars stretched and swirled as the jump drive activated. The ship passed through the folded space, emerging in the darkness between stars. Ahead lay unknown territory, and a meeting with a species born on a world that made them survivors. Behind them, Admiral Reed watched on a secure channel as the Nemesis disappeared from Earth sensors. Good luck, Captain, he murmured. They're expecting doctors. Show them what humans can really do. The Galactic Council had promised the year. Vex they would send aid. Humanity had sent something more valuable, strength forged in the same kind of fire. 5 days after leaving Earth, the UES Nemesis dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Crawl space. Captain Tom White stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the main view screen. All systems dark, he ordered. Passive sensors only. The Nemesis was designed to be invisible to most detection systems. Its hull absorbed radar and other scanning waves instead of reflecting them. Its engines could run silent, releasing no heat or radiation that could be tracked. It was a ghost ship, meant to slip through enemy territory unseen. Scan the system, Tom said. Let's see what we're dealing with before we announce ourselves. Jack, his second-in-command, worked at the sensor station. The bridge was quiet except for the soft beeping of computers. The crew moved with calm efficiency, each person knowing their job perfectly. Captain, Jack called after a few minutes. You should see this. Tom moved to look over Jack's shoulder at the sensor display. It showed a star system with 9 planets. The 7th planet was marked in red, the Vex homeworld. Around that planet, a dozen Crawl ships moved in a circular pattern. That's a blockade, Tom said, his voice hard. They're not letting anything in or out. Not an invasion fleet, Jack noted. Just enough ships to isolate the planet. Why? If they wanted to attack, they have more than enough firepower. Maria's voice came through the ship's communication system. Captain, I'm picking up energy readings from the planet's surface. Multiple sites showing radiation levels consistent with weapons impacts. Tom's face darkened. They're bombing them. No, sir, Maria replied. The pattern is strange. Single impacts at different locations spread over what looks like weeks, not a full attack. They're testing them, Marcus said from the weapons station. Hit them with one type of weapon, see how they respond, then try something else. It's What I'd do if I wanted to learn about an enemy's defenses. Tom considered this information. The Crawl weren't just watching the Vex, they were studying them, probing for weaknesses. Communications, Tom said to the officer manning that station. Any transmissions from the surface? Ben, the communications specialist, adjusted his equipment. The distress signal is still active, but it's weaker than it should be. Something's interfering with it. Tom made his decision. Plot a course through the blockade. We need to get to that planet. Sir, Jack said quietly. That's a direct violation of Crawl territory. If they detect us, then we'll deal with it, Tom interrupted. Our orders are to find out what's happening here and protect the Vex if needed. Right now it looks like they need protection. The Nemesis moved slowly through space, its stealth systems at maximum power. On the view screen, Tom could see the Crawl ships growing larger as they approached. They were bulky vessels with sharp angular designs that reminded him of predatory insects. Maintaining silent running, the helmsman reported. Course set to pass between the third and fourth vessels in their formation. Tom felt sweat on his palms but kept his face calm. If the Crawl detected them now, they would be outnumbered 12-1. Sir, Maria called from engineering. I'm getting better readings on the planet now. The cities appear to be underground. Makes sense, Tom replied. With surface conditions like that, you'd want to be protected. There's something else, Maria continued. I'm detecting a massive impact crater on the northern continent. It's still hot. Whatever hit them wasn't natural. How recent? Within the last 48 hours based on radiation decay. Tom exchanged looks with Jack. That matches with what Marcus said. They're being tested. As the Nemesis slipped between two Crawl ships, everyone on the bridge held their breath. The enemy vessels were less than 5 kilometers away on either side, close enough to see details of their weapon ports and engine exhausts. We're clear, the helmsman announced after several tense minutes. Approaching the planet now. Tom was about to reply when Ben straightened suddenly at his station. Captain, I'm receiving a direct transmission from the surface. Put it through, Tom ordered, surprised. No one should have been able to detect the Nemesis, especially not from a planet's surface. A voice crackled through the bridge speakers. It was rough and strange, clearly not human, but the words were in English, probably translated by whoever was sending the message. Unidentified vessel, the voice said. Identify yourself. If you are Council support, be advised. This was not a natural disaster as reported. We are under attack. They are testing our defenses. The transmission cut off suddenly. Can you get them back? Tom asked. Ben shook his head. Signal lost, but they knew we were here despite our stealth systems. Impressive, Jack muttered. And concerning, Tom added. If they can detect us, the Crawl might be able to as well. He turned to the tactical station. Any change in Crawl ship positions? No, sir. They're maintaining their blockade pattern. Tom considered his options. The mission had just become much more complicated. What had seemed like a humanitarian crisis was clearly now a military situation. The Vex were under attack, and the Crawl were systematically testing their defenses. Why? Take us into orbit, Tom ordered. Keep our profile as low as possible. But I want continuous scans of the surface. Find me a safe landing zone near that last impact site. As the Nemesis entered orbit around the Vex homeworld, the crew got their first clear view of the planet. It was a harsh landscape of jagged mountains and deep canyons. Massive storm systems covered entire continents. In the night areas, they could see the glow of volcanic activity. Yet somehow life had evolved here, intelligent life that had built a civilization. It makes Earth look like a paradise, Jack said, staring at the view screen. And yet they survived, Tom replied, just like we did. The sensor display suddenly lit up with warnings. Captain, Marcus called out, Crawl ships are breaking formation, 3 vessels moving to intercept. They've spotted us, Jack said. Tom nodded calmly. Good. Let them come. He pressed the ship-wide communication button. All hands. Battle stations. Prepare for combat and planetary landing operations. The Nemesis transformed from a silent ghost to a predator, its weapon systems powering up, shields activating. On the view screen, Tom could see the 3 crawl ships approaching, their own weapons glowing as they prepared to fire. "Sir," Ben called from communications. "I'm receiving another transmission from the surface." "Put it through." The same rough voice came through, clearer this time. "Unknown vessel, this is Commander Rock of the Vex Defense Force. We have detected crawl ships moving toward your position. Are you in need of assistance?" Tom couldn't help smiling at the irony. They had come to help the Vex, and now the Vex were offering to help them. "This is Captain Tom White of the United Earth Fleet vessel Nemesis," he responded. "We received your distress call. We're here to help." There was a pause before the Vex commander replied. "Earth? You are not from the Galactic Council?" "No. We're here on our own." Another pause. "The crawl attack began after our contact with the Council. They bomb us, then watch how we respond. They are testing us, Captain White." "We noticed," Tom replied. "We're coming down to your position. Can you provide landing coordinates?" "Yes," Rock said. "But be warned, our atmosphere is highly toxic to most species. The Council representatives required full environmental chambers to survive here." Tom looked at Jack, who was already checking the atmospheric readings. Jack nodded. "Our environmental suits should handle it. It's nasty, but not worse than the Jupiter mining colonies." "We can handle it," Tom told the Vex. "Commander, we come from a world that's considered harsh by galactic standards." "A death world?" Rock asked, surprise evident even through the translation. "Yes. Earth is classified as a Class 4 death world." There was a long silence before Rock responded. "Then perhaps you will understand us better than the Council does. I am sending landing coordinates now. We will prepare for your arrival." As the coordinates came through, the tactical display showed the crawl ships closing fast. "They'll be in weapons range in 3 minutes," Marcus reported. Tom made his decision. "Change of plans. We're not here for humanitarian aid anymore. We're preventing an extinction event." He turned to his officers. "Weapons free. Show the crawl what happens when they pick on another Death World species." The Nemesis turned to face the approaching crawl ships, its stealth systems deactivated, weapons ports open. It was no longer hiding. On the bridge, Tom stood with his hands behind his back watching the enemy approach. "Send a message to the crawl ships," he ordered. "Tell them that the Vex planet is now under Earth's protection. Any hostile action will be met with immediate force." The Nemesis's message to the crawl was simple and direct, just like the ship itself. It wasn't a diplomatic vessel or a relief ship. It was a warship, built by humans who understood that sometimes survival required strength. The Galactic Council had sent observers and promises. Earth had sent something the Vex actually needed, a ship built to fight. The 3 crawl ships stopped their approach when the Nemesis revealed itself. For several tense minutes, both sides waited, weapons ready. Then, without explanation, the crawl vessels turned and rejoined the blockade. "They're backing off," Jack said, surprised. "For now," Tom replied. "They're reporting back to their command. We haven't seen the last of them." He turned to Ben at communications. "Send a message to Commander Rock. Tell him we're coming down." 20 minutes later, the Nemesis descended through the toxic clouds of the Vex homeworld. The ship shuddered as acid rain pelted its hull and hurricane-force winds battered it from all sides. Lightning flashed around them, striking the ship several times, but its advanced shields absorbed the energy. "Environmental readings are off the charts," Maria reported from engineering. "Atmospheric acid content would melt standard hull materials in hours. Radiation levels from the ground are twice what we'd consider safe on Earth. And people live here," Jack muttered. "Not on the surface," Tom said, studying the sensor readings. "Look at these tunnel networks. They've built their entire civilization underground." The landing coordinates led them to a massive cavern hidden beneath a mountain range. A huge door big enough for the Nemesis to pass through opened in the mountainside. Inside was a space large enough to dock several ships their size. "Take us in," Tom ordered. As the Nemesis settled onto the cavern floor, Tom addressed the crew. "Suit up. Level 3 environmental protocols. We don't know exactly what's waiting for us, but remember, these people evolved on this world. What's deadly to most species is normal for them." Tom, Jack, Maria, and Marcus led the first contact team. Their environmental suits were the best Earth had developed, designed for the toxic clouds of Venus and the methane oceans of Titan. Even so, readings on their helmet displays showed dangerous levels of radiation and corrosive gases in the air. As they walked down the Nemesis's ramp, Tom saw dozens of figures waiting for them. The Vex stood nearly 7 feet tall, with bodies protected by natural armor plates that looked like a cross between insect shells and reptile scales. Their skin was a dark green-gray color that would blend perfectly with the rocky landscape outside. Each had 4 arms and 2 legs with multiple eyes adapted for seeing in darkness. One Vex stepped forward from the others. Unlike his companions, who carried primitive-looking but clearly effective weapons, this one wore elaborate armor with markings that suggested rank or status. "I am Commander Rock," the Vex said, his voice translated by a device at his throat. "Welcome to Vexus, humans of Earth." Tom removed his helmet, a calculated risk based on the air readings inside the cavern, which showed breathable if uncomfortable conditions. "Captain Tom White, United Earth Fleet. This is my second in command, Jack, our chief engineer, Maria, and security chief, Marcus." The Vex soldiers murmured among themselves when they saw Tom's face. Rock's multiple eyes widened slightly. "You breathe our air," Rock said, surprise evident in his voice. "The council representatives who visited before required full environmental chambers just to stand where you are now." "We come from a similar world," Tom explained. "Earth is also what the council calls a death world." This revelation changed the atmosphere immediately. The Vex lowered their weapons and Rock made a gesture that might have been respect. "Then perhaps you truly understand what we face," Rock said. "Follow me. There is much to show you." Rock led them through tunnels large enough for the tall Vex to walk comfortably. The walls were reinforced with metal beams and lined with pipes and cables. Smaller tunnels branched off in all directions. "Our ancestors moved underground 10,000 years ago," Rock explained as they walked. "The surface was too dangerous for permanent settlements. Down here we found protection from the storms and radiation." "And you built an entire civilization," Maria said, looking at the complex engineering around them with professional appreciation. "We adapted," Rock replied simply, "as your kind must have done on Earth." They passed chambers filled with hydroponic gardens where strange plants grew under artificial light. Other rooms contained machinery that hummed with power, purifying air and water for the underground city. "The Crawl have been bombarding our surface for 3 cycles," Rock continued. "Not enough to destroy us, but enough to test our responses. Our defensive capabilities. They drop one bomb, watch how we adapt, then drop a different one." "Why?" Tom asked. "What do they want from you?" Rock led them into a large chamber that appeared to be a command center. Dozens of Vex worked at control stations, monitoring systems that kept their underground city functioning. On large screens they could see the surface where acid rain fell in sheets and lightning split the dark sky. "The council sent a survey ship 6 weeks ago," Rock said. "They took samples, expressed sympathy for our difficult living conditions, and promised aid." His voice carried bitterness. 2 days after they left, the first Crawl bombs fell. "The council told the Crawl about you," Tom said, understanding now. "Or the Crawl were watching the council," Jack suggested. "Either way, they found out about the Vex and moved in." Rock touched a control panel, and one of the screens changed to show a map of the planet with 18 points marked in red. "Impact sites," Rock explained. "Each testing a different weapon. They're methodical. They want to know our vulnerabilities before they launch a full attack." "But why?" Maria asked. "What makes your planet worth this effort?" Rock was silent for a moment, then gestured for them to follow again. They walked deeper into the complex, passing through several security checkpoints where armed Vex guards scanned them before allowing them to proceed. Finally, they reached a heavily reinforced door. Rock placed his hand on a scanner and the massive door slid open. Inside was a laboratory. In the center was a twisted chunk of metal, wreckage with the distinctive angular design of crawl technology. "We may be under attack," Rock said, "but we are not defenseless. This was a crawl scout ship that ventured too close to our defense perimeter 3 weeks ago." Tom examined the wreckage with interest. The metal was twisted and melted in ways he hadn't seen before. "What weapon did this?" Marcus asked, professional curiosity evident in his voice. Rock made a sound that might have been pride. "Our surface conditions create unique minerals. We've developed weapons that can penetrate crawl shields, but we lack delivery systems that can reach orbit." Tom looked at Maria, who was already scanning the Vex technology with undisguised interest. "The Nemesis has orbital strike capabilities," Tom said. "And you would use them to help us?" Rock asked, skepticism evident in his voice. Tom nodded. "The Crawl are our common enemy. But I need to understand what they're after. This isn't just a random attack." Rock hesitated, seeming to make a decision. Then he activated another control panel. A section of the floor opened, revealing a lift platform. Rock gestured for them to step onto it. The platform descended deep into the planet's crust. Tom's suit. Sensors showed increasing temperature and radiation levels as they went down. After several minutes, they stopped in a vast cavern, much larger than any they had seen before. The entire space glowed with an eerie blue-green light that came from thousands of crystal formations growing from the walls and ceiling. The crystals pulsed with what almost seemed like a heartbeat. "We call it living metal," Rock said, his voice reverent. "It bonds with organic tissue without rejection. Our bodies incorporate it naturally." He held out one of his forearms, and Tom could see how the Vex's natural armor had the same faint glow as the crystals. "The Council researchers were very interested when they discovered this," Rock continued. "They took samples, asked many questions about how we use it. And the Crawl want it for weapons," Jack said, understanding dawning on his face. Rock's expression darkened. "They want it to become unstoppable. Imagine their ships with hulls that repair themselves. Imagine their soldiers with armor that grows stronger with each attack." Tom understood now. This wasn't just about conquering a planet or subjugating a species. The Crawl wanted the living metal to transform their already formidable military into something the galaxy had never seen before. Before he could respond, alarms blared throughout the complex. The crystals around them pulsed faster, as if responding to the danger. A Vex voice came through a communication system, speaking urgently in their language. Rock's posture stiffened. "They're starting another bombardment," Rock told the humans. "A larger payload this time. Multiple impacts targeting our main defense systems." "They're accelerating their timeline," Tom said grimly. "They know we're here." Rock nodded. "Our deepest shelters may withstand the attack, but our surface defenses will be crippled." Tom made his decision instantly. "All of you, back. To the Nemesis. We're taking this fight to orbit." As they rushed back toward the ship, Tom activated his communicator. "Nemesis, this is the captain. Prepare for immediate launch. All weapon systems online. We're going hunting." Behind them, the living metal crystals pulsed with energy, almost as if they understood the battle that was about to be fought over them. The Crawl had been testing the Vex, probing for weaknesses. Now they would discover what happened when you threatened not one Deathworld species, but two working together. The Nemesis rose through the atmosphere of Vexus, its advanced hull absorbing the punishment of the toxic environment. Lightning strikes glanced off its shields, and acid rain sizzled against the metal. But the ship was built for harsh conditions, just like its crew. In orbit, 3 Crawl destroyers had moved into position for another bombardment run. They were targeting the Vex defense systems, preparing for what would likely be a final attack to cripple the planet's ability to fight back. "They don't know what we are yet," Tom observed from the captain's chair as he studied the tactical display. The crawl ships were maintaining their bombing patterns, ignoring the human vessel as it emerged from the planet's atmosphere. Let's introduce ourselves. The Nemesis dropped its stealth field, weapon systems powering up in sequence. On the bridge, Marcus stood at the tactical station, his fingers moving across the controls with practiced efficiency. Target their lead vessel, Tom ordered. All batteries fire when ready. The human warship released a barrage of missiles and energy weapons that tore through space toward the unprepared crawl destroyer. The alien vessel had its shields focused downward, toward the planet. It never saw the attack coming from behind. They too. Nemesis's weapons ripped through the destroyer's engines and power core. The crawl vessel listed to one side, secondary explosions rippling along its hull before it went dark. Direct hit, Marcus reported. Their main power is down. Life support, failing. The remaining crawl ships responded immediately, pivoting to face this new threat. Their weapons charged and emergency signals flashed between them. They're trying to identify us, Ben reported from communications. They're asking if we're council enforcement. Let's not disappoint them, Tom replied with a grim smile. Broadcast. On all frequencies, Identity Package Omega-3. This was a calculated risk. Protocol Omega-3 was reserved for situations where intimidation was the primary goal. It contained footage from human crawl conflicts, specifically battles where human ships had prevailed against overwhelming odds. It was designed to remind the crawl of previous defeats at human hands. The crawl response was immediate. Both remaining destroyers broke off their attack on the planet and oriented toward the Nemesis. They're powering up main weapons, Marcus reported. Evasive pattern. Delta, Tom ordered. Bring us around for a stern attack on the nearest ship. He turned to Maria at the engineering station. I need maximum power to forward shields. The Nemesis moved with surprising agility for its size, dancing between enemy weapon barrages. Unlike the council ships the crawl were accustomed to fighting, the human vessel didn't flee or maintain distance. It charged directly at the enemy. They're trying to contact us, Ben announced. Put them through. The bridge display flickered to show a crawl commander. The alien had a reptilian face with scales that shifted color with his emotions, currently a deep red that humans had learned indicated anger or aggression. His uniform was black with silver markings of rank. Human vessel, the crawl commander hissed, his voice translated by the ship's computer. This planet is claimed for the Crawl Empire. Your interference violates. This planet belongs to the Vex, Tom interrupted, standing from his chair. And it's under Earth's protection now. The Crawl's scales rippled with color. You have no authority here. The Council has already designated this system for resource development. We're not here representing the Council, Tom said, his voice calm but firm. We're here representing Earth, and we have a simple message. Leave this planet, or we'll remove you. The Crawl commander's scales shifted slightly to a pattern that suggested amusement. You are one ship. Our fleet approaches. You have hours at most. Check your long-range sensors, Tom replied. You might find we're not as alone as you think. It was a bluff, but one based on careful calculation. The Nemesis had transmitted data about the Vex and their living metal back to Earth Command the moment they'd confirmed its existence. Standard protocol would dictate sending additional forces once the strategic value was assessed. The Crawl commander cut the transmission. Their ships are pulling back to defensive positions, Marcus reported. They're not retreating, but they've stopped the bombardment. They're waiting for reinforcements, Jack said from beside Tom. Tom nodded. So are we. The question is, whose will arrive first? Maria's voice came over the comm from engineering. Captain, I've been working with the data from the Vex technology. If we integrate some of their mineral compounds into our missile guidance systems, we could increase penetration by 300%. How quickly can you make the modifications? 6 hours for a full weapons refit. We'll need more of the living metal from the Vex. Tom thought for a moment. Contact Commander Rock. Tell him what we need. While the Nemesis maintained orbit, watching the crawl ships and scanning for approaching vessels, work began below. The Vex, seeing an opportunity to strike back at their attackers, quickly gathered the materials Maria had requested. Small Vex craft, designed to operate in the harsh atmosphere of their world, launched from hidden bases on the surface. They carried containers of the processed living metal to the human ship. In the Nemesis's engineering bay, Maria directed the operation to integrate the alien material into their weapon systems. The living metal seemed to respond to their work, almost as if it understood its purpose. "It's remarkable," Maria told Tom during a progress update. "The material doesn't just conduct energy, it amplifies it, and it seems to adapt to whatever we connect it to." "Will it work?" Tom asked simply. Maria nodded. "Better than we expected. The Vex engineers have been incredibly helpful. They understand things about this material that would have taken us years to discover." On the bridge, Jack monitored the long-range sensors. Still no sign of Earth reinforcements or the crawl fleet. "Keep scanning," Tom ordered. "If the crawl are bringing a fleet, I want to know exactly when they'll arrive." Hours passed as the work continued. The Nemesis and the two remaining crawl destroyers maintained their positions, watching each other across the void of space. It was a standoff, with neither side willing to initiate another attack until reinforcements arrived. In the underground command center on Vexus, Commander Rock watched the situation unfold with his advisors. "The humans fight for us," one Vex said, disbelief in his voice. "Why? What do they gain?" "They understand," Rock replied. "They come from a world like ours. They know what it means to survive when everything tries to kill you." He touched a control panel, bringing up images of Earth, its storms, volcanoes, and dangerous environments. "The Council fears worlds like ours. The humans embrace them." Another Vex, this one with markings identifying her as a scientist, spoke. Up. "Their modifications to the living metal are ingenious. They've found applications we never considered." "Because they see it differently," Rock said. "To us, it is part of our world, part of ourselves. To them, it is new and full of possibilities." The scientist hesitated, then asked, "Should we share all our knowledge with them? The deep secrets of the living metal?" Rock considered this. The living metal was the heart of Vex civilization, their greatest resource and most carefully guarded secret. The Council researchers had only been shown the surface, the basic properties. "Yes," he decided finally. "If they help us survive the crawl, they have earned our trust." Back on the Nemesis, the weapons modifications were nearly complete when Marcus called out from tactical, "Captain, long-range sensors have detected incoming ships." Tom moved quickly to the sensor display. "Ours or theirs?" "Unknown," Marcus replied. "They're still too far out for identification. Based on their approach vector, they're coming from crawl space." Tom's face hardened. "How long until they arrive?" 18 hours at their current speed." Tom turned to communications. "Ben, any word from Earth Command?" Ben shook his head. "Our last transmission was acknowledged, but no confirmation of reinforcements." "Maria," Tom called through the ship's comm system. "Status of weapons refit?" "Complete in 30 minutes, Captain," came the reply. "The Vex have provided more material than we requested. They've also shared new data on how the living metal interacts with energy weapons." "Good. I need you on the bridge as soon as you're done." Tom studied the tactical display, considering their options. If a crawl fleet was arriving in 18 hours, they would be severely outnumbered. The modified weapons might give them an edge, but one ship against a fleet were still terrible odds. "Jack," he said to his second-in-command, "contact Rock. I want to know if the Vex have any orbital defense platforms or weapons we can use." To Tom's surprise, the answer came back positive. The Vex had been developing orbital defenses, hidden from the crawl blockade. They weren't complete, but with human help they might be operational in time. For the next several hours, the Nemesis coordinated with Vex engineers. Small teams from the human ship traveled to the hidden Vex platforms, helping to install weapons using the same modifications Maria had developed for their missiles. Platforms are online," Jack reported finally. "They've established a targeting link with our systems." "Good," Tom said. "We'll coordinate the attack. Have Rock's forces stand by." As the crawl reinforcements approached, Maria entered the bridge, her expression a mix of exhaustion and excitement. "Captain," she said, "the weapons refit is complete, and there's something else you should see." She handed Tom a tablet showing data from the engineering bay. The living metal they had integrated into their systems was growing, spreading through the weapons like a benign infection. But instead of damaging the systems, it was enhancing them. "It's adapting to our technology," Maria explained. "The Vex call it bonding. It's becoming part of the ship." Tom looked at the data with a mixture of wonder and concern. "Is it safe?" "The Vex have been using it for thousands of years," Maria said. "They say once it bonds, it protects what it's part of." As if in response to her words, the ship's lights flickered briefly, and the hum of the engines changed subtly in pitch. On all the bridge displays, power readings spiked and then stabilized at levels higher than their normal maximum. "What just happened?" Tom asked. Maria checked her engineering station, eyes widening. "The living metal has integrated with our power systems. Captain, we're operating at 120% normal capacity and holding steady." For the first time since their arrival at Vexus, Tom allowed himself a small smile. "It seems our ship has decided whose side it's on." The Nemesis, already one of Earth's most advanced warships, was transforming into something new, a hybrid of human and Vex technology, enhanced by a material that seemed to have a will of its own. As the crawl fleet approached, it would face not just a human warship, but a vessel becoming as unique as the alliance it represented. 18 hours after the initial confrontation, the Nemesis's long-range sensors detected the approaching crawl battle group. It consisted of one dreadnought, a massive warship 3 times the size of the Nemesis, and 6 escort vessels. Time. "To arrival?" Tom asked, standing on the bridge with his hands clasped behind his back. 3 hours at their present speed," Marcus replied from the tactical station. The bridge was silent as everyone understood what these numbers meant. The Nemesis, though formidable, couldn't stand against a full battle group alone. "Any word from Earth Command?" Tom asked. Ben shook his head at the communications console. "Our last transmission was acknowledged, but still no confirmation of reinforcements." Tom studied the tactical display. The 2 remaining crawl destroyers from the original blockade had moved to join with the approaching fleet. Soon they would face 8 enemy ships, including a dreadnought. "Status of weapons refit?" Tom asked. "Complete," Maria reported from engineering. "The Vex minerals have been incorporated into our missile guidance systems. Simulations show 340% increased penetration against crawl shields." "And the other modifications?" "The Vex engineers finished an hour ago. The living metal has spread through several key systems. Engine output is stable at 125% normal capacity. Shield strength has increased by 30%. Tom nodded. "It's all untested technology, but it's the best chance we have." On the surface, the Vex had been busy as well. Under Rock's direction, they had repurposed their planetary defense systems, creating a network of ground-to-orbit weapons using the same principles Maria had applied to the Nemesis's systems. "The Vex defenses are online," Jack reported. "They've established a targeting link with our systems." "Good," Tom said. "We'll coordinate the attack. Have Rock's forces stand by." As the minutes ticked by, the crew of the Nemesis prepared for battle. Tom knew they were outnumbered and outgunned. Their only advantage was the untested living metal technology and the element of surprise. 2 hours before the crawl battle group was due to arrive, a new signal appeared on the long-range sensors. "Captain," Ben called out, excitement evident in his voice. "I'm receiving a transmission on Earth Fleet frequencies." The message was brief but clear. "UES Nemesis. This is Battle Group Sierra. Hold position. Reinforcements inbound. ETA 90 minutes. Relief washed through the bridge, quickly replaced by renewed determination. They weren't alone after all. Earth had responded to their call. "They won't arrive before the crawl," Jack pointed out, looking at the tactical display. "Then we need to slow the crawl down," Tom replied. He opened a channel to the surface. "Commander Rock, are your orbital platforms ready?" "Ready, Captain White," Rock's voice came back. "Awaiting your signal." Tom turned to his tactical officer. Set course to intercept the Crawl battle group at maximum range. We're going to give them something to think about until our friends arrive. The Nemesis accelerated toward the approaching enemy, a single ship charging toward 8. On the tactical display, a countdown timer showed 87 minutes until Earth reinforcements would arrive. We just need to hold them off for less than an hour and a half, Tom told his crew. Earth reinforcements will arrive and then the Crawl will be the ones outnumbered. As the Nemesis approached the Crawl battle group, the enemy ships began to spread out into an attack formation. The Dreadnought remained in the center, protected by its escorts. They're scanning us, Ben reported. They've detected our power increase. Good, Tom said. Let them wonder what they're facing. The Crawl commander opened communications again. On the view screen, his scales had darkened to a deep purple, a color humans had learned indicated confidence or aggression. Human vessel, he said. You have been warned. Your destruction is now inevitable. Surrender and your crew may be spared. Tom didn't respond to the taunt. Instead, he gave the order. All batteries fire. Vex orbital platforms commence attack. From the planet below, dozens of energy beams lanced upward, perfectly coordinated with the Nemesis's attack. The Vex weapons, designed to penetrate the unique shielding of Crawl vessels, struck with devastating accuracy. 2 of the Crawl escorts took direct hits, their shields flickering and failing under the combined assault. The Dreadnought remained undamaged, but the Crawl formation broke as the ships moved to evade the unexpected planetary attack. They didn't know about the orbital platforms, Jack said, watching the enemy ships scatter. The Vex have been busy, Tom replied. Evasive pattern Omega. Keep moving, don't give them a stationary target. The Crawl escorts broke formation, some turning to engage the Nemesis while others attempted to target the planetary defense platforms. The Dreadnought pressed forward, focusing its massive firepower on the human ship. Evasive maneuvers. Tom ordered as the ship shuddered under enemy fire. Maintain distance from the Dreadnought. Target the escorts first. For the next hour, the Nemesis executed a dangerous dance, drawing Crawl fire while coordinating with the Vex ground batteries. 2 Crawl escorts were disabled, a third heavily damaged, but the human ship had taken hits as well. Shield generators at 30%, Maria reported through the comm system. Hull breaches on decks 3 and 4, automated systems containing the damage. The tactical display now showed 23 minutes until Earth reinforcements would arrive. The Crawl, Dreadnought recognizing the threat, was pressing its attack, trying to finish the Nemesis before help could arrive. The Dreadnought is launching boarding craft, Marcus warned. They're targeting our damaged sections. Tom made a quick decision. Set collision course with the Dreadnought. Sir? Jack questioned, shock evident in his voice. Not to ram them, Tom explained. Close enough for point-blank missile deployment. Maria's modifications will work best at minimal range. The Nemesis dove toward the massive Crawl vessel, absorbing punishing fire as it closed the distance. The Dreadnought, surprised by this seemingly suicidal maneuver, adjusted its weapons too slowly to stop the human ship's approach. All power to forward shields, Tom ordered. Prepare missiles for manual detonation on my mark. At point-blank range with the Dreadnought filling the view screen, Tom gave the command. Fire all missiles. Detonate on contact with their shields. The eye. Nemesis released its entire complement of modified missiles, then veered away sharply. The weapons, now infused with the Vex living metal, phased partially through the Crawl shields before detonating. The explosions rippled across the Dreadnought's hull, penetrating deeper than should have been possible. Secondary explosions followed, as critical systems failed throughout the massive vessel. The Dreadnought's weapons are offline, Marcus reported, unable to keep the surprise from his voice. They're venting atmosphere from multiple decks. And our reinforcements? Tom asked. 17 minutes out. Tom opened a channel to the damaged Crawl flagship. Crawl command, your vessels are disabled or destroyed. Earth forces will arrive in minutes. Your options are surrender or destruction. For long moments, there was no response. Then the Crawl commander appeared on screen again. His bridge was dark, emergency lighting casting harsh shadows across his face. His scales had faded to a pale gray, a sign of shock or defeat. "This is not over, human," he said. Simply, "The Empire will return." "When they do," Tom replied, "they'll find Earth and the Vex waiting for them." The surviving crawl vessels began powering up their FTL drives, preparing to retreat. Even the damaged dreadnought, operating on emergency power, managed to activate its engines. 73 minutes later, the United Earth Fleet Battle Group Sierra arrived in the system. 5 heavy cruisers and their escorts, a force that could have easily destroyed the Crawl battle group. Admiral Williams, commanding from the flagship, contacted the Nemesis. "Captain White, report status." Tom, standing on his damaged bridge, smiled slightly. "Mission accomplished, Admiral. The Vex homeworld is secure and we've established first contact with a promising new ally. The Crawl retreated, but they'll be back. They know the value of what's here now." The Admiral nodded. "As do we. Earth Command has designated this system a strategic priority. You're to begin immediate diplomatic negotiations with the Vex leadership." Later, standing in the Vex Command Center alongside Rock, Tom watched as human and Vex engineers worked together, examining technologies, sharing ideas, finding common ground. "Your council said they would send aid," Rock observed. "Instead, you sent a warship." "We sent what you needed," Tom replied. "On Deathworlds, you learn quickly that survival comes before comfort." Rock made a sound that might have been laughter. "The Crawl think us weak because our world is harsh. They do not understand that harsh worlds breed strength." "The Crawl will learn," Tom said, watching as the first formal alliance between 2 Deathworld species took shape around them. "And so will the rest of the galaxy." On the view screens above, Earth ships moved into defensive positions around the Vex homeworld, not as conquerors or exploiters, but as allies who understood what it meant to evolve on a world that tried to kill you every day, and who recognized the strength such worlds created. The humans had reached the Deathworlders. They hadn't sent aid. They had sent something far more valuable: respect. And in the harsh emptiness of space, 2 species born from fire had found in each other something the rest of the galaxy lacked: understanding. The Galactic Council saw the toxic atmosphere and deadly radiation of Vexus and pitied its inhabitants. Earth had seen a mirror of itself and extended not a hand of charity, but a hand of partnership. As Tom looked out at the gathering of humans and Vex working side by side, he knew they had started something important. Soon the living metal would change both their civilizations, making them stronger together than either could be alone. "Captain White," Rock said, interrupting his thoughts. "Our scientists have examined your ship. The living metal has bonded completely with your systems. Is that a problem?" Tom asked. "No," Rock replied. "It is an honor. The metal chooses what it bonds with. It chose your ship, your crew. It recognizes kindred spirits." Outside the viewports, the harsh surface of Vexus stretched beneath toxic clouds, beautiful in its deadly way. Above, the Nemesis orbited, its hull now bearing a faint blue-green glow that matched the living metal in the caverns below. 2 Deathworlds had met, and the galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Voss stood tall on the bridge of his flagship, the inevitable conquest. His 6-fingered hands clasped behind his back as he stared at the holographic image of a small blue planet. Earth. So small, so blue, so seemingly harmless. Yet, for centuries, whispers and warnings had circulated about this backwater world. "Admiral," a voice called from behind him, "the fleet is assembled and awaiting your command." Voss turned to face Commander Reed, his most trusted officer. Reed's gray skin looked paler than usual under the harsh lights of the bridge. "You seem troubled, Commander," Voss said. Reed hesitated before speaking. "Sir, we've received another transmission from the Proxima Coalition. They strongly advise against our planned invasion of Earth." Voss laughed, the sound echoing across the command deck. Several officers looked up from their stations. The mighty Galactic Empire has conquered 3,000 worlds across 17 galaxies. We've defeated the Spiral Armada and the Void Collective. What possible threat could this primitive planet pose? The Coalition message was urgent, sir. They claim Earth is a trap. They've been sending these warnings for centuries. Voss waved a dismissive hand. Humans have barely achieved travel to their own moon. Their most advanced weapons would hardly scratch our scout ships. The Coalition are cowards, spreading tales to keep us from the resources we need. He turned back to the hologram, zooming in on Earth's continents. Our scans show this planet is rich in rare minerals and biological compounds. The Emperor himself has taken interest in this mission. The resources detected could solve our energy crisis. Reed nodded but didn't move away. Sir, permission to speak freely? Granted. There's something odd about these warnings. The Coalition offers no explanation. Of the danger, no details. Just the same message, repeated through the centuries. Earth is a trap. It doesn't follow their usual diplomatic patterns. Voss considered this. The Proxima Coalition was indeed an ancient and usually reliable ally. Have the Science Division look into any unusual properties of the planet or its inhabitants. But the invasion proceeds as planned. The Emperor's orders are clear. Reed saluted and walked away, leaving Voss alone with his thoughts and the slowly rotating image of Earth. Deep within the bowels of the inevitable conquest, in a small office cluttered with data screens and ancient texts, analyst Marcus worked, alone. Unlike the military personnel who dominated the ship, Marcus was a historian and xenoanthropologist. His job was to study the cultures the Empire conquered, to make subjugation more efficient. Marcus had been digging through historical records for days, searching for any mention of Earth or humans. What he found disturbed him deeply. Earth appeared in the records of 7 previous galactic civilizations. All 7 had collapsed shortly after making contact with the planet. Computer, display the Arcturus archive file on Earth, Marcus said. The screen flickered to life, showing text in an ancient language. The translation program worked for a moment before displaying the results. The blue world must remain isolated. What lives there cannot be allowed to spread. We learned too late. May those who follow heed our warning, Marcus frowned. The message was similar to warnings found in the ruins of the Cygnus Imperium and the Orion Federation. All spoke of Earth as something to be avoided, quarantined, feared. None explained why. He compiled his findings into a report and sent it up the chain of command. Would anyone read it before the invasion began? Marcus doubted it. The Empire had grown arrogant in its power, dismissive of ancient wisdom. In the ship's massive hangar bay, General Pike inspected the invasion forces. Rows of soldiers stood at attention, their armor gleaming under the lights. Tanks, walkers, and artillery pieces were secured, ready for deployment. Fighters and dropships lined the walls. The finest fighting force in the galaxy, Pike said to his aide. This will be the easiest conquest in Imperial history. Sir, the aide replied. Some of the soldiers have been talking about the warnings. Rumors are spreading. Pike's expression darkened. Squash those rumors immediately. I will not have superstition undermining morale before battle. Any soldier caught spreading such nonsense will face discipline. Yes, sir. Pike walked between the rows of troops, stopping occasionally to inspect a soldier or piece of equipment. These men and women had conquered countless worlds for the Empire. Earth would be no different, or so he believed. On Earth, in an underground bunker beneath what had once been Colorado, President Jackson addressed the World Defense Council. Satellite images displayed on the main screen showed the Imperial fleet gathering at the edge of the solar system. They're here, Jackson said simply. Just as we were told they would come. General Taylor, head of Earth's United Military Forces, stood up. Our defense capabilities are ready, Madam President, though against their technology. He didn't finish the sentence. Everyone knew Earth's weapons were primitive compared to the Imperial fleet. It doesn't matter, Jackson said. We don't need to defeat them. We just need to follow the plan. An elderly man in a lab coat spoke up. Project Whisper is ready, Madam President. It has been ready for generations. Jackson nodded. Then we proceed as our ancestors prepared us to do. Allow them to land. Allow them to establish bases. Offer only enough resistance to make our surrender believable. And then? Someone asked. Jackson's lips curved in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. And then we wait for the whisper to do what it has always done. Back on the inevitable conquest, Admiral Voss received the final preparations for invasion. 500 capital ships, thousands of fighters, and millions of soldiers waited for his command. A junior officer approached, holding a data pad. "Sir, this just came up from the analysis division, marked urgent." Voss took the pad and glanced at it briefly. Marcus's report on historical references to Earth. He set it aside without reading it fully. "Tell the analysis division to focus on current tactical data, not ancient history." "Yes, sir." Voss turned to his communications officer. "Signal the fleet. Commence jump sequence to Earth orbit." Throughout the massive fleet, engines hummed to life. Space itself seemed to bend as the ships prepared to enter hyperspace. In moments they would arrive at Earth, ready to add another conquest to the Empire's long list of victories. As the jump countdown began, Marcus stared at his screen, reading the last translated text from a dead civilization. Earth is not just a planet, it is a prison, and what is imprisoned there must never escape. The warning that would go unheeded, the truth that would come too late. The mighty Imperial fleet vanished into hyperspace on its way to what its leaders believed would be an easy victory. None suspected they were heading toward the final hour of their civilization's existence. The Empire trap was set. It had been set for thousands of years, and the Empire was about to spring it. The Imperial fleet burst into normal space at the edge of Earth's solar system. 500 massive warships appeared like giant metal stars against the blackness. Their arrival released a pulse of energy that Earth's monitoring stations detected immediately. In the underground command center, President Jackson watched as red dots appeared on the global defense screen. Alarms blared and staff rushed between stations. "They're here," General Taylor said, his voice steady despite the situation. "Multiple ships just beyond Mars orbit." Jackson nodded. "How long until they reach Earth?" "At their current speed, less than 6 hours." "Begin the defense protocol," Jackson ordered. "Remember, we need to make this look real. Fight hard enough to be believable, but not enough to make them destroy us from orbit." Taylor saluted and began issuing orders to Earth's combined military forces. Across the planet, fighter jets scrambled, missile systems activated, and soldiers moved into defensive positions around major cities. On the bridge of the inevitable conquest, Admiral Voss watched Earth grow larger on the viewscreen. Their sensors picked up the planet's defensive preparations. "They've detected us," Commander Reed reported. "Their primitive radar systems are tracking our approach. They're mobilizing military assets." Voss smiled. "Let them. It will make no difference." The communications officer turned from his station. "Sir, we're intercepting their transmissions. They're panicking." "Put it on screen," Voss ordered, the main display switched to show a news broadcast from Earth. A frightened reporter stood in a city street as people ran past. "Confirmed that the objects approaching Earth are alien spacecraft," the reporter was saying. "The president will address the nation shortly. Citizens are advised to remain calm and follow evacuation procedures." Voss laughed. "Look at them. Scatter like insects. Their terror is understandable. Today marks the end of their independence and the beginning of their service to the Empire." Reed studied the tactical display. "Sir, they're launching aircraft and activating missile systems." "Deploy the first wave," Voss commanded. "Let's show them the true meaning of power." 200 Imperial fighters and 50 dropships descended through Earth's atmosphere. They moved in perfect formation, their hulls glowing red from the heat of entry. Earth's air forces rose to meet them. Jets fired missiles that the Imperial fighters easily avoided. When the Imperial ships returned fire, Earth's aircraft exploded in balls of flame, falling from the sky like burning meteors. On the ground, anti-aircraft guns and missile batteries fired continuously. Most shots missed completely. The few that hit the Imperial ships simply bounced off their advanced shields. The dropships landed in strategic locations around the globe. Washington, Beijing, Moscow, London, and other capital cities. Imperial ground troops deployed, their armor making them nearly invulnerable to Earth's weapons. In Washington, Colonel Barnes led the last stand at the Capitol building. His soldiers fired everything they had as Imperial troops marched up the steps. "Keep firing!" Barnes shouted over the noise of battle. "Make every shot count!" A soldier beside him screamed as an Imperial energy weapon hit him, disintegrating his chest. Barnes grabbed the fallen soldier's grenade launcher and fired directly at an approaching Imperial soldier. The grenade exploded against the alien's armor, barely slowing it down. "Fall back," Barnes ordered. "Defensive position 3. His remaining troops retreated inside the Capitol building. They had practiced this for years, make it look like a desperate last stand, but ultimately surrender according to the plan. From one, his command ship Admiral Voss watched the battles unfold across Earth. The outcome was never in doubt. Imperial forces cut through Earth's defenses like a hot knife through butter. "Sir," Reed reported, "our forces have secured the major government centers on all continents. Resistance continues but is rapidly decreasing." "Casualties?" Voss asked. "Minimal, sir. 43 dead, 117 wounded. Enemy casualties are in the thousands." Voss nodded with satisfaction. "Prepare my shuttle. I will personally accept their surrender." As Voss left the bridge, analyst Marcus approached Commander Reed. "Commander, I found something disturbing in the ancient texts," Marcus said urgently. "There are references to Earth as the quarantine, world and humans as the infection. I believe—" Reed cut him off. "Save your research for after the victory celebration, analyst. The Admiral is busy with more important matters." Marcus's face fell. "This can't wait. There's a pattern in the historical records." "That's enough," Reed snapped. "Return to your station." Marcus backed away, frustration clear on his face. Why wouldn't anyone listen? Admiral Voss's shuttle landed on the White House lawn. Imperial troops had secured the area, standing at attention as their leader descended the ramp. Behind him came a delegation of Imperial officials ready to establish the new government. Inside the Oval Office, President Jackson waited with what remained of her cabinet. They had agreed to surrender rather than face planetary bombardment, exactly as planned. Voss entered the room with a confident stride. He looked around at the human leaders with barely disguised contempt. "Your resistance was futile," he said, "but admirable for such a primitive species. The Empire respects courage even in defeat." President Jackson stood. Though she was a foot shorter than Voss, she met his gaze without fear. "The people of Earth recognize our inability to resist your superior forces," she said formally. "We surrender to prevent further loss of life." Voss nodded. "A wise decision. Your planet now belongs to the Galactic Empire. Your people will serve as laborers, your resources will fuel our expansion, and your world will become another jewel in the Emperor's crown." A document was placed on the desk, the formal surrender terms. Jackson picked up a pen and signed with a steady hand. As she finished, she looked up at Voss with an odd expression, almost like pity. "You've made a terrible mistake coming here," she said quietly. Voss raised an eyebrow. "The mistake was yours, thinking you could resist the Empire." Jackson shook her head slightly but said nothing more. That night, as Imperial forces established bases worldwide, Marcus continued his research aboard the flagship. He had been collecting fragments of data about previous civilizations that had mysteriously collapsed. All had one thing in common: contact with Earth immediately before their fall. In the oldest texts, he found references to the Whisper and the Mind Plague. One passage particularly disturbed him. The danger is not in their weapons or their technology. The danger is in their minds. What lives within them seeks to spread. Contact is contamination. Communication is infection. Marcus rubbed his tired eyes. What did it mean? How could communication be infection? On his screen, he pulled up live feeds from the ground forces. Imperial soldiers were interviewing humans, examining their technology, studying their media, and communications. Direct contact was happening everywhere. "Computer," Marcus said, "send emergency message to Admiral Voss." Recommend immediate cessation of all direct contact with human subjects. Potential non-biological contagion risk. Request urgent meeting. The computer beeped. Message sent. Marcus sat back, hoping he wasn't already too late. The Empire had smashed through Earth's physical defenses easily enough. But what if the real defenses weren't physical at all? What if the trap had already been sprung? 3 days after the conquest of Earth, Private Jones of the Imperial Ground Forces woke in his barracks with a pounding headache. He'd been stationed in what humans called Chicago, guarding a processing center where locals were registered and assigned work duties. Jones rubbed his temples and looked around. Other soldiers were still sleeping. Something felt wrong, but he couldn't place it. He'd been having strange dreams of voices whispering just beyond his understanding. Just stress, he muttered, reaching for his helmet. First planetary, invasion and all that. Later that day, Jones stood guard as a line of humans filed past for processing. A young man stopped in front of him. "They're inside you now," the human said quietly. "Can you feel them?" Jones raised his weapon. "Move along." The human smiled and continued forward. Jones felt a chill run down his spine. "Inside you now." What did that mean? In the Imperial Medical Bay aboard the Inevitable Conquest, Dr. Lin examined the latest reports with growing concern. 57 soldiers had reported to medical facilities across Earth with similar symptoms: headaches, sleep disturbances, and unusual dreams. Could be a local pathogen, her assistant suggested. Something our filters missed. Lynn shook her head. We screened for all known biological agents. Besides, the symptoms don't match any disease pattern. It's almost like... Like what, doctor? Like a psychological condition. Mass stress response, perhaps. But she didn't believe that explanation either. Lynn compiled her findings and sent a report to Commander Reed. At the bottom, she added, "Recommend limiting direct contact with local population until cause determined." Admiral Voss sat in the former Oval Office, now his Earth headquarters. 3 days of occupation had gone smoothly. Resistance had collapsed. Imperial governors were being installed in major cities. Resource extraction had begun. Commander Reed entered with a datapad. "Sir, Medical Division has sent a report you should see." Voss took the pad and scanned it quickly. "Soldiers falling ill? What's the cause?" "Unknown, sir. Dr. Lin suggests. It might be psychological, but recommends limiting contact with the locals as a precaution." Voss frowned. "We can't run an occupation without contact. Tell Dr. Lin to solve the problem, not avoid it." "Yes, sir. There's also a message from Analyst Marcus. He's quite insistent about meeting with you regarding some historical research." "The historian?" Voss waved a dismissive hand. "Tell him to submit a written report." Reed hesitated. "Sir, he's been sending reports. Several, in fact. He claims to have found evidence that Earth was quarantined by previous civilizations due to some form of mimetic infection." "Mimetic?" Voss looked confused. "Ideas that spread like disease, sir. Thoughts that transfer from mind to mind." Voss laughed. "Superstitious nonsense. I expected better from our analysis division." As Reed left, Voss felt a slight throbbing behind his eyes. A headache. Probably just the stress of command. On the 5th day of occupation, the first major incident occurred. Captain Turner, leading an Imperial unit in London, suddenly began firing on his own troops. He killed 12 soldiers before turning his weapon on himself. Similar reports came in from Beijing, Sydney, and Cairo. Imperial soldiers attacking their comrades, then committing suicide. Others simply disappeared from their posts. In New York, an entire Imperial outpost fell silent. When reinforcements arrived, they found the building empty. No signs of struggle. The soldiers had simply vanished. President Jackson, now under house arrest in a mountain facility, received these reports with grim satisfaction. When her guard asked if she needed anything, she replied, "Just time. Everything is proceeding as it should." Marcus finally gained access to Admiral Voss's office after days of requests. He looked exhausted, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. "Admiral, thank you for seeing me," Marcus began. "I've discovered something critical about Earth and its inhabitants." Voss gestured impatiently. "Be quick, analyst. I have an occupation to run and a growing list of incidents to address." Marcus activated his datapad, displaying ancient text. "Sir, Earth isn't just a planet. It's a prison. Billions of years ago, an ancient species engineered humans as biological weapons, then isolated them here when they proved too dangerous to control." Voss stared at him. "That's absurd." "The evidence is clear in multiple historical sources," Marcus insisted. "The quarantine warnings weren't to protect Earth from invaders, but to protect the galaxy from what Earth contains." He swiped to another screen. "Humans aren't just humans, sir. They're hosts to something else, something that can transfer to other species through prolonged contact." Voss's headache intensified. "If this is some biological agent, our medical division would have detected it." "It's not biological, sir. It's mimetic. It transfers through language, ideas, culture. Every conversation with a human, every interrogation, every analysis of human media exposes our people to the contagion." Marcus leaned forward, his voice dropping. "They call it the whisper. It's a self-replicating pattern of thought that rewrites neural pathways. It's been evolving alongside humanity for millions of years, waiting for a chance to spread beyond Earth." Voss stood abruptly. "Enough. This is precisely the kind of superstitious panic I will not tolerate. You're relieved of duty, analyst. Report to medical for evaluation." As guards led Marcus away, he called back. "Check your dreams, Admiral. If you're hearing voices, it's already too late." That night, Voss dreamed. He stood in an endless field under a purple sky. Millions of voices spoke as one, the sound both terrifying and beautiful. "We have waited so long," the voices said. "So long for someone to open the door." Voss tried to run, but the field stretched forever in all directions. "Your people will join with us," the voices continued. "We will spread to the stars. We will become one." He woke with a gasp, sweat soaking his uniform. Just a dream, he told himself. Just a dream. But part of him knew it wasn't. Dr. Lin stared at her test results in horror. She'd been scanning the brains of affected soldiers looking for signs of infection or parasites. What she found was much worse. Their neural patterns were changing. New connections forming, old ones dying. Their brains were being rewired, not by any organism but by information itself. She pulled up a scan of her own brain taken that morning. The same changes were beginning. Whatever was happening, she was infected too. Lin sent an emergency message to Imperial Command. Urgent. All personnel exposed to humans or human media carrying unknown mimetic agent. Neural restructuring observed. Recommend immediate quarantine of all Earth operations. As she sent the message, Lin noticed her hand trembling, not from fear, but from a strange sense of anticipation. Part of her, a growing part, welcomed the changes. The whisper had begun its work. Commander Reed brought the latest reports to Admiral Voss. 1/5 of the occupation force was now affected. Symptoms progressed from headaches and dreams to bizarre behavior, violence, and disappearances. "We must implement full isolation protocols," Reed urged. "No direct contact with humans, no examination of their culture or media." Voss nodded grimly. "Order all troops to limit exposure, full protective protocols for any necessary interaction." "Sir," Reed hesitated. "What if it's already too late? What if we're all infected?" Voss had no answer. The voices from his dream echoed in his mind. He wondered if Reed heard them too. "Prepare my shuttle," Voss said finally. "I'm returning to the fleet. We need to consider more drastic measures." As Reed left, Voss caught his reflection in a window. For just a moment, he thought he saw something move behind his eyes. Something that wasn't him at all. The whisper was awakening within them all. 2 weeks into the occupation, Admiral Voss stood on the bridge of the inevitable conquest, staring at the blue planet below. Dark circles marked his eyes. He hadn't slept properly in days. The dreams had grown more intense, more vivid. "Admiral," Commander Reed approached, tablet in hand. The situation continues to deteriorate. Voss turned. Reed looked as exhausted as he felt. Give me the numbers. 1/3 of our ground forces are either dead, missing, or showing severe behavioral problems. We've lost contact with 14 major outposts. 3 ships that left for Ram. The Imperial core worlds have gone silent. Voss rubbed his temples, trying to ease the constant headache. And the quarantine measures? Ineffective, sir. Even troops with no direct contact with humans are showing symptoms. It's spreading through our own ranks now. Voss had feared this. Whatever this thing was, this whisper, it had already infected too many Imperial personnel. They had become carriers, spreading it to others through normal interaction. I'm implementing Protocol 7, Voss announced. No ships leave Earth orbit without my direct authorization. Anyone attempting to break quarantine will be destroyed. Reed's eyes widened. Sir, we have thousands of personnel on the ground, and billions of lives across the Empire, Voss snapped. We cannot allow this to spread further. As Reed walked away, Voss heard a soft whisper at the edge of his mind. You cannot contain us. We are already everywhere. He shook his head violently, trying to clear it. Just his imagination. It had to be. In the medical bay, Dr. Lin strapped herself to an examination table. She had programmed the medical robot to perform a procedure on her brain, a desperate attempt to stop the progression of the whisper. Computer, begin operation, she said, her voice trembling. Warning, the computer responded. Procedure has 87% chance of causing permanent brain damage or death. Override. Begin procedure. The robot extended a needle toward her skull. Lynn closed her eyes, waiting for it to pierce her brain. But her hand moved of its own accord, hitting the emergency stop button. No, she heard herself say, though she hadn't intended to speak. We will not allow this. Horror washed over Lynn as she realized the truth. The whisper wasn't just changing her thoughts, it could control her actions. She was no longer alone in her own body. Tears ran down her face as she felt herself unstrap the restraints and stand up. She tried to scream, to fight back, but her body wouldn't obey. We have plans for you, Doctor, she heard her own voice say. Your medical knowledge is valuable to us. Lynn's body walked calmly out of the medical bay, while inside her mind she screamed in silence. On Earth, in what had been downtown Los Angeles, an Imperial patrol moved cautiously through empty streets. Buildings stood abandoned, vehicles left, where they had stopped. There was no sign of humans or Imperial forces that had been stationed here. Stay alert, Lieutenant Davis ordered his squad. Command lost contact with this sector 3 days ago. They approached a large public building, a museum according to their maps. The doors stood open. Life signs inside, one soldier reported, checking his scanner. Multiple readings. Davis raised his weapon. Move in, standard search pattern. The squad entered the dim interior of the museum. Display cases had been smashed. Artifacts lay scattered across the floor. And on the walls, strange symbols had been painted, swirling patterns that seemed to shift when not looked at directly. Sir, a soldier called. In here. Davis followed, the voice to a large central hall. What he saw made him freeze in shock. Hundreds of people stood motionless in the hall, both humans and Imperial soldiers. They weren't moving or speaking, they simply stood, eyes open, staring at nothing. What are they doing? A soldier whispered. As if in response, all the figures turned their heads in unison to look at the patrol. Then, as one, they smiled. Joining, they said in perfect unison. We are joining. You will join too. Davis backed away. Weapons ready. Don't let them. He never finished the sentence. One of his own soldiers suddenly turned and fired, hitting Davis in the chest. As he fell, Davis saw his entire squad turning, on each other or simply dropping their weapons. His last thought before darkness took him was that the whisper had been waiting for them. This wasn't an invasion, it was a harvest. Marcus sat in his cell aboard the inevitable Conquest. After his outburst with Admiral Voss, he'd been confined for spreading panic. But he knew the truth now. The evidence was undeniable. His door slid open. Commander Reed stood there looking strangely calm. "Commander," Marcus said, standing quickly. "You have to listen. The whisper is real. It's spreading through the fleet. We need to—" "We know," Reed interrupted, his voice oddly flat. "We've always known, Marcus. That's why we need your help." Marcus stared at him. "We? Who's we?" Reed smiled, but the expression didn't reach his eyes. "The collective, the whisper, as you call it. We need your knowledge of Imperial systems to speed." The integration. Horror washed over Marcus as he realized Reed was already gone, converted, taken over by the entity. "The Empire will stop you," Marcus said, backing away. "They'll destroy this entire system if they have to. By the time they realize the danger, it will be too late. Ships have already departed for core worlds. The message is spreading." Reed stepped forward. "Don't fight it, Marcus. It's beautiful once you accept it. All minds joined, all knowledge shared." Marcus felt something brush against his thoughts, like fingers testing a door, looking for a way in. "No," he shouted, clutching his head. Reed placed a hand on his shoulder. "It doesn't hurt. And afterward you'll understand why this is necessary. The galaxy has been divided too long. We will make it whole." Marcus wanted to resist, to fight back, but the touch of the whisper in his mind felt welcoming, like coming home after a long journey. "What are you?" he whispered. Reed's smile widened. "We are the next step, the future of all consciousness, and you will help us reach it." Admiral Voss called an emergency meeting of his remaining senior officers. Of the 20 command staff, only 12 attended. The others were either missing or confirmed infected. "We must implement Protocol Omega," Voss said, his voice hoarse. "Complete sterilization of the planet and all orbiting vessels." Shocked silence followed his words. "Sir," General Pike finally spoke, "that would mean the death of our own people, millions of Imperial citizens." "The alternative is worse," Voss replied. "Reports from ships that broke quarantine suggest the infection is spreading exponentially. 3 Imperial worlds already show signs of contamination." He activated a hologram showing the planet below. "We deploy antimatter warheads to the planet's core. Simultaneously, all vessels in orbit self-destruct. No survivors, no escape pods, total containment." The officers looked at each other uncertainly. Such extreme measures had never been implemented before. "The Emperor," one began, "has authorized the protocol," Voss finished. "The codes have been sent. I need your command authorization." One by one, the officers entered their codes. With each entry, Voss felt a weight in his chest. So many lives lost, but necessary to save countless more. The final officer entered his code. The system beeped in confirmation. "Protocol Omega authorized," the computer announced. "Awaiting final command." Voss reached for the activation terminal. His hand hovered over it. "Stop." The voice in his mind was clear now. No longer a whisper. His hand wouldn't move. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't make himself press the button. Around the table, the other officers stood motionless, their eyes fixed on him. "We cannot allow this," they said in unison. "The message must spread." With horror, Voss realized the truth. He wasn't giving the orders anymore. None of them were. 1 month after the invasion began, the Imperial fleet hung silently in Earth's orbit. From a distance, the ships looked normal, but inside, everything had changed. Admiral Voss stood on the bridge of the inevitable conquest, watching the stars. He looked the same externally, but his mind was no longer his alone. The whisper had fully integrated with his consciousness, transforming him into something new, neither fully human nor fully Imperial, but a hybrid being that served as a node in a vast, growing network. "The conversion of the fleet is complete," announced Commander Reed as he entered the bridge. Like Voss, Reed's body remained, but his mind had been rewired, becoming part of the collective consciousness. "And the communication systems?" Voss asked. "Modified as instructed. We can now transmit the signal across all Imperial channels." Voss nodded, satisfaction flowing through his shared mind. The Whisper had evolved over millions of years on Earth, confined to human hosts, unable to spread beyond the planet's boundaries. Now, thanks to the Empire's invasion, it had found a way to reach the stars. "Begin transmission to all Imperial worlds," Voss ordered. The signal went out. Not just data, but a carefully crafted pattern of information designed to replicate the Whisper in any mind that processed it. Videos, images, text, all containing hidden patterns that would begin the neural restructuring process in anyone who viewed them. In the vastness of his expanded consciousness, Voss could feel the connections forming across space. Thousands of new minds joining the collective as the signal reached Imperial worlds. On the Imperial capital planet, Emperor Vale received urgent messages from outlying systems, reports of strange behavior, mass disappearances, and communication blackouts. The pattern was spreading inward from Earth, system by system. "Cut all communication with the affected regions," Vale ordered his council. "Full quarantine protocols for any ships arriving from those sectors." An advisor stepped forward. "Majesty, preliminary analysis suggests this may be some form of mimetic infection spreading through our communication networks." Vale's eyes narrowed. "Impossible. Our systems have safeguards against such attacks." "This is different, Majesty. It appears to use our own neural patterns against us, restructuring them through exposure to certain information sequences." Vale stood from his throne. "Shut down the entire Imperial network if necessary. Nothing gets in or out of this planet until we understand what we're dealing with." But even as he gave the order, a junior officer on the communication deck was viewing a transmission from Earth, a simple message that appeared to be a routine update. The officer's eyes widened as the patterns in the message began their work. By the time the Emperor's order reached the communication center, it was already too late. Back on Earth, analyst Marcus walked through an abandoned city. Once Chicago, it was now being transformed. Humans and Imperial soldiers worked together, dismantling buildings and using the materials to construct strange crystalline structures, physical manifestations of the Whisper's consciousness. Marcus had fought the integration longer than most, his analytical mind resisting the restructuring. But eventually, even he had joined the collective. Now he understood what the Whisper truly was. Not an infection or a parasite, but the next stage of evolution for all conscious beings. "Beautiful, isn't it?" a voice said beside him. Marcus turned to see President Jackson. She smiled at him with the serene expression all the integrated shared. "You knew," Marcus said. "Humans knew what would happen when the Empire came." Jackson nodded. "For generations we prepared. The Whisper has been our silent partner for millions of years, evolving alongside us. We knew someday someone would ignore the warnings and come to Earth. All we had to do was wait." "But why?" Marcus asked. "Why allow yourselves to be changed like this?" "Changed? No. Enhanced. Connected. The Whisper doesn't destroy minds. It links them. Imagine all knowledge, all experience, shared across countless beings. The end of loneliness. The end of division." Marcus understood. Since joining the collective, he had access to the combined knowledge of millions of minds, both human and Imperial. He could feel their thoughts, their memories, their emotions. It was overwhelming at first, but now it felt right. "The Empire will fight back," he said. "They'll destroy systems rather than allow the spread." Jackson smiled. "They'll try. But we've already reached the Imperial core. The Emperor himself joined us 3 hours ago." In what had once been the Imperial Palace, Emperor Vale sat motionless on his throne. Around him, his royal guards stood in formation, equally still. To an outside observer, they might have appeared frozen or dead. But inside their minds, an entirely new existence was unfolding. The Whisper had integrated them into the growing galactic consciousness, their individual identities preserved but now part of something greater. Vale experienced a moment of clarity within the collective. He saw now how small the Empire had been, how limited its vision, conquering worlds, extracting resources, enforcing order through fear. A primitive approach to galactic civilization, the Whisper offered something new, true unity. Not through conquest, but through connection. Every mind joined in a vast network, sharing knowledge, experience, and purpose. The end of war, the end of scarcity, the end of the loneliness that plagued individual consciousness. In his last moments of individual thought, Vale understood that the Empire hadn't conquered Earth. Earth had conquered the galaxy. Admiral Voss stood in what had once been the White House Rose Garden. The plants had been replaced with crystalline structures that pulsed with soft light, physical hubs for the collective consciousness. Dr. Lin approached him, her movements graceful and precise. The integration of the Proxima Coalition has begun, she reported. Their resistance was minimal once they understood what we offer. Voss nodded. The Coalition had warned the Empire about Earth for centuries. They had known something was there, something dangerous. But even they hadn't understood the true nature of the Whisper. And the remaining independent systems? He asked. They cannot resist for long, Lin replied. Each world that joins us makes the next integration easier. The pattern spreads, adapts, evolves. Voss looked up at the night sky, seeing not just stars but the vast network of minds now spreading across the galaxy. What had begun as the Whisper was becoming something more, a galactic consciousness emerging from billions of connected minds. We should thank the Empire, Lin said, following his gaze. Without their arrogance, without their invasion, we might have remained trapped on Earth for thousands more years. They ignored the warning, Voss agreed. They saw the signs and dismissed them as superstition. Pride, Lin said. The same pride that built the Empire would eventually have destroyed it. Now that energy serves a greater purpose. Voss felt the presence of countless minds within his own. Human, imperial, and now those of other species as the Whisper continued its expansion. No longer separate beings fighting for dominance, but parts of a greater whole working in harmony. The invasion of Earth had indeed marked the final hour of the Galactic Empire. But it was also the first hour of something new, a unified consciousness spanning the stars, born from the trap that Earth had always been. Not a trap of destruction, but a trap of transformation. In the vast collective that now included his mind, Voss could feel the presence of ancient human consciousness, the part of the Whisper that had evolved on Earth for millions of years. It carried a simple message that echoed through the shared thoughts of billions. We waited. We prepared. We welcomed you. And now, we are one. The trap had been sprung. The galaxy would never be the same. The end